Alright, today I'm gonna explain no longer human. Sorry? As somebody who's very, very painfully similar to Yozo, I think I can give it a crack. I read the damn novel like 4 or 5 times now. I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about the quotes. So, you wanna understand Yozo for some reason. I can understand it. The first diagnosis I would make is that he's probably autistic. This is coming from an autist, so it's not offensive. Definitely neurodivergent. That's the first thing to understand about him, is that these people who judge him, like when you go to Goodreads and you see this woman judge him, it's like, well, hold on, aren't you supposed to be tolerant towards neurodivergent people? And many of them don't seem very tolerant at all. They don't understand that his behavior is born out of his neurodivergence, he's born out of his autism or whatever the fuck it is. I think it's probably that. It's not only that, it's also trauma. Definitely traumatized. But I don't know if it was because of the assault he suffered at the hands of the servants, but I feel like for him, just living was much worse than that. What traumatized him was just being himself, and it's not a particular event that traumatizes somebody like this. It's many different ones. It's having to live, and the living sort of becoming more and more difficult. Somebody coming? Oh, who cares? The living becoming more and more difficult. So I think he wasn't traumatized because of one thing, but because of many different things that happened to him. And sorry. You need to understand, you need to be in his mindset to understand why he did the things he did. Like, for example, the double suicide attempts. You have to understand that for somebody like that, it's very difficult to make a decision. So when somebody says, yeah, let's die, you just go and does it. And another thing that really bothers him is the inauthenticity of society. So one of the first scenes is a scene where he describes the train station and the bridge that goes over the train, the railways, and the moment he discovered that it was only a utilitarian device, he lost all interest in it, as he says. And thus, I think one major component of somebody like him, that I feel too, is that when you discover that something is just there to serve society, it loses its magic. You no longer care about it. Maybe that's why it's so difficult to go to school when you're like this. It's so difficult to work and so difficult to uphold societal norms, because you see the bullshit behind it, you see all the falsities behind it. The niceties kill you. You really can't take it because it's just, there's something magnificently disturbing about it. It's not just bad. It's like a Lovecraft Cthulhu monster bad, because you see the depth and the darkness behind it, and you can't take it. You think it's awful, like really, really bad. And the jester thing, I think I saw a video, I saw some of it where, the person who made the video suggested the jesters might be autistic or something like that, and I didn't even watch the video. I just listened. I just heard that, and then I stopped to think because the jester, I've actually find the idea of the jester very interesting, and I have identified as a jester. And the fact that this is apparently connected to artists is very revealing for me, because I am one. For one, because I'm one, and I'm interested in the jester thing, and two, because Yozo was too. He called he called it clowning, but he also called himself a jester, which is basically the same thing for him. Although I would make a differentiation, I would say that jester is something more magnificent than a clown. I think a jester is somebody who is kind of clever, sort of intelligent, not necessarily book smart, but clever. And so he uses his cleverness, his sharp-edged mind, to kind of disrupt the normal flow of things, and to become the class clown, and to make everybody laugh, and to just abjure or abnegate the normal functioning of things of society, which is of course for the jester, for the artist, or for the artistic jester, let's say, is awful. It's like an attack on him, on his authenticity. And I think that's why he was a clown, that's why he was a jester. He was a jester not for some particular reason, but because he could not tolerate the normal functioning of things in which everything is not for itself, but for some stupid utilitarian function which he couldn't take. Right, so one quote he has is, this quote of this quip that a human being must eat, because if he doesn't eat, he dies. That sort of folk wisdom saying is so disturbing to him, because it escapes reality. Right? For the artistic jester to not do things for their own sake, but for the sake of something else, for the sake of some outside function which he can't comprehend, is disturbing. It's like, again, it's like being thrown into a kind of this kind of Lovecraftian giant space of monsters and alienation. You just can't take it. And that explains his jesting, right? Indeed, I think that's an even deeper thing, that there's something wrong about that. There's something special that the artistic jester sees, in that, what's the point of doing things if you're not doing them for their own sake? It's like, there's something disturbing about it. It might be even as deep as philosophy, that there's a fundamental lack in life, which some philosophers have pointed out, that you never do things for their own sake, but for something in the future, for something in the past. and so you sort of circle around yourself and you don't reach yourself. You're you don't do things. You don't touch the leaves because you want to touch it, or because it needs to be touched, or because it's good to touch it, but because you just feel like touching it, or because it makes you feel like you accomplish something if you touch it. And that disturbing lack of the present disturbs the jester, right? And this is hard to explain. If you're not like this, you don't get any of this. But yeah, it's sort of like Buddhism, kind of like this kind of idea that meditation is to bring things closer to you so that they're here and you can grasp them, and you don't have to constantly run toward them and escape and in the process lose yourself. And yeah, it's and why was Yozo so why was Yozo so such an asshole to people? Why wasn't he nice to that first kid, who exposed him at the gym class, right, when he was supposed to I don't know what, it was something like a bar, and he over jumped it or something, like he overdid the jump. Takaichi, yeah. Why was he such an asshole to him? Why did he pretend to care about him even though he didn't? It's you're not necessarily it's not that you're a sociopath when you're like this, right? But you just sort of don't like people. You can't deal with them, And of course he had a special reason, because he was being exposed. But even beyond that, it's not that you don't care about people per se, but you're sort of scared of them, and you don't really like them. Sorry. You don't really want to be around them. And you feel this sense of alienation, especially when it's a person that's not like you. Like Yozo even says later that when I meet somebody who's similar to me, who's an outcast, a degenerate, I didn't use those words, but that's the word I would use, is outcast, degenerate, weirdo, the people that society casts aside. Then when he sees a person like that, he melts away in tenderness. So he's not a sociopath, and we're not sociopaths per se. And who cares if you are? It's not your fault anyway, so who cares, right? But this fucking finger always in the thing. So he's not a sociopath, but we just can't take people, we can deal with them. And we always feel better when they're not around, right? So another jester is Charles Bukowski, who said, I don't hate people, I just feel better when they're not around. That's apparently one thing he said. You can never be sure with these attributed quotations if they said them or not, but I don't remember reading it. But Bukowski he definitely felt that, and he even said, I just don't like people. And he's not a sociopath because he says there's something wrong with me. So that's another man who was definitely probably autistic. He was definitely a jester. So he was misunderstood. He was not a sociopathic lunatic, just a jester. An outcast who, the way he deals with being an outcast, the way he deals with the inauthenticity of society, the drudgery, the 9 to 5, which he spoke about, is So you sort of notice the trend that Yozo could never even work. And Bukowski worked, but it was very hard, and he was always drunk, and he was a factotum, jumping from job to job. We can never really work because it's too inauthentic, it's too scary, it's too anxiety inducing. And it's even saying these words like scary and makes us sound like we're pussies, so to speak, we're cowards, right? But it's much more deeper than that. It's an ancestral fear. It's disturbing to us, like Yozo even says that I lost my thread, but it was something like, I lost it, but he even says something like, when people are angry at me, this is another point. When people are angry at me, I don't just feel scared. I feel like this ancestral dread, this that I've offended my ancestry or something beyond the universe, right? That's what I mean. We're not just scared as no longer humans, as jesters. We're really, really scared. Like when I get yelled at or something, it's really, really scary. Not because I care about the guy. I'm just afraid of the ancestral void that's calling. When I get chided, as if I had broken the law of the universe because I couldn't follow what the humans said I should do. So you have to understand it's a completely different universe. And for those of you who say, oh, it's not an excuse, frankly, I'm tired of that shit. I don't care. It is an excuse. A perfectly valid, a massively attenuating circumstance, One where it should knock off a couple of years of your sentence, if not all the years. I don't think we're responsible for any of it. I think when you're an autistic jester or something like that, something as severe as that, you have no responsibility. Which is not to say you shouldn't pretend you have responsibility. But I don't think you actually have it because, again, you just live in a completely different universe that the humans, the normies, could never understand. So there's no point in pretending, oh, look here, why don't you do your job? Why didn't you, we sentence you to 5 years or, how can you take somebody from a different universe, shove them into yours and then judge them? It doesn't make any fucking sense. Completely different universe. It's not fair. You do what your brain tells you to do, right? So I feel like if you watch my videos, I give conflicting signals about this. But it's only because it's difficult. It's rife with contradiction. I'm not saying I have the answers. I think we should pretend we have responsibility, but those of us who don't. Just a fact. If your brain is fucked up, your brain is fucked up. It's not fair to treat the disabled jester, as a normal person. And all of you normal people who are watching this, or who are not as fucked up as we, you will never understand this. So in my opinion, it's not fair. It's like taking somebody with no legs and making them run, run the mile. I'm tired of that shit. Fuck that. There is no responsibility when you're different. Because you live in a different universe, so the same rules don't apply. That's that. QED. No more guilt for me. Don't like it. Suck on this twig. Anyway. So that's one another thing. So, and another thing to mention is misogyny. Yeah, Yozo was definitely a misogynist, and I don't condone that. But I think something should be noted about that too, which is that the prostitutes were the only people, as far as I can remember, that Yozo ever let into his world. Like, because they were the only ones that, when he was around them, he let his guard down, right? He said, I could never think of them as human, right? I could never think of prostitutes as human beings, or even women, right? That's another important thing. And he said, these prostitutes were the only ones in whose arms he could feel absolute security. That's what he said, absolute security. So to apply misogyny here, it's kind of a joke. They don't even see them as women. That's not a bad thing. For him, that's a good thing. And to say, to not see them as human is usually a bad thing, but you don't understand the story if you think that's a bad thing. From the standpoint of Yozo, that's a good thing, because humans are the all-seeing panopticon that judges, that turns everywhere you go. Right? He's like a giant eye that turns on his fulcrum in the panopticon. It's not a normal watchtower, it's a spinning fucking eye. And for Yozo, to not be human is for that eye to shut off. To not be human is to not be watched, but to be seen. Right? So it's like the parasite in the eyes of a snail. Oh, this kind of looks like the eyes of a snail. Like, hold on, let me see if I can do this. The eyes of a snail, right? And there's this parasite that infects snails, and then it like dances in their eyes, and it's colorful and it's disgusting. But that's what I've likened it to. I have linked it to, metaphored it with, is these eyes. I look like chopsticks. Is that racist? Sorry. Anyway, I'm half Japanese. No, that was a pathetic save. No, I'm not. I don't know what I am. Probably some degenerate Hungarian or something. We come from somewhere in Asia. Somewhere like that. We conquered this place. The Caspian Basin, something. Is that what it's called? Anyway, that's what I metaphored it with. Is that society is, this is much better than Joker, but society is this all-seeing eye, or this panopticon that was described by Foucault. I think it was designed by Bentham. I don't know why a utilitarian philosopher would design something like that. Well, maybe that's why. Oh fuck, I realized the connection. I'm supposed to be against utilitarianism, even though it's supposed to be benign. Is it really? Well, not really. It's fucked. It's stupid. Utilitarianism turns you into a monster, a util. Stupid. We don't like it. But I'm not gonna get into philosophy theory now. Anyways, this eye, it's this parasite in the snail, snail's eyes, so that the individual is no longer the individual, it's the parasite watching. And another very important observation is that for Yozo, this is the most important observation the most profound observation in all of the story. I've sort of spoken about this before, I only spoken about the science part. I think that society is an individual. Right? So you remember that he says society. He came to the conclusion that society might be an individual. So what is society but an individual? And when he realized that, it gave him a lot of freedom. What does that mean? Do you know what that means? If you know what that means, you're definitely Yozo. You passed the test. Fuck me, how did I hold this? So what does that mean? It doesn't mean that society is an amalgam, a monolith. It doesn't mean that society is the sum total of the individuals in society. What it means is that society exists within each individual. That's what it means. So what it really means, basically society doesn't exist as we know it. Society doesn't exist. So, society is this giant ocean that Zeus controls, and where the monsters capsize the ships, and everybody, troubled waters. That's what society is. Society is not the safe haven from this terror. Society is not a lighthouse or a watchtower or a berth, that you can dock your ship at. Society is the water. Society is the waves. Society is the ocean. The eyes that watch, the panopticon that watches, the snails, the parasites that watch and don't see. The safe haven, the port, the lighthouse is the human, is the person who is no longer human, like the prostitutes, in whose arms he could feel absolute security. Why? Because he didn't see them as human anymore. They were no longer human. So being a human for him is a bad thing. And once the eye no longer watches but sees, once the eyes are real eyes, authentic eyes, they don't watch but see. And at that point, the person is no longer human. Okay? And for him, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. So really, Yozo was more, he was a misogynist, but he loved, the only people he ever loved were women, it seems. He never called any man less than human, so which for him is a good thing again. But the point is that society is not the safe haven from the elements for him. It's the opposite. It's the elements itself. Indeed, and this is my addition, society is just nature doubled over itself, right? So what society does is it takes nature, it still has your nature. Nature doesn't disappear like this forest, but it's within society. So society takes nature and keeps nature, can't get rid of it, right? And it pretends to be the safe haven. And you can say in a way it is, but in another way it's not. In a way it atrophies you, subordinates you, right? As many philosophers have said, especially the postmodern ones, but it doesn't matter. That's why reactionaries don't like them, because they love order and love to assimilate people and destroy them, into to take their individuality away. But anyway, or anybody else who's like that, say the same thing about the socialists. Everybody just wants to approbate. Everybody just wants you to approbate to the system. Wants you to be the little, the little Michelin man for the cause, and that's what people like us don't like. That's what society does. Nature is still there, but it pretends to take nature away. It pretends to take the danger away. But the danger is always there. It's in human beings. And it's revealed when a human being gets angry. When a human being is given to rage, then the eyes turn to you, the parasites infest, the ocean rages. The ocean, the waters get troubled. But when the same person is given to mirth, when you can pacify the person with clowning, say, then the eye turns away and the parasite no longer infests, and the waters are no longer troubled. That's how you feel, but they're still watching, right? They're still troubled. You just don't feel it, right? But it's always there. Society always watches, and you can only find solace, momentary solace, momentary repose, quietude, in the bosom of a person that doesn't watch but sees. That's the only time that the eye really doesn't watch, and the parasite really doesn't infest, and the waters are really not troubled, okay? It's sort of two-layered, when you feel like they're not watching and when they actually are not watching. And society gives you the illusion, when you can pacify a person or when you can pacify a group, that they're no longer watching, but they are. You can only find solace in the bosom of individuals, maybe a group. I would say just individuals, like a prostitute or a lover or a friend. You can only find the peace in their bosom and nowhere else. That's why our philosophies tend to be individualistic, because we don't trust society. We think society sucks. We think society watches and doesn't see. Okay? And the other revelation that they had, so I didn't explain it too well, but it's all difficult stuff. Tread lightly. Let's see if I could talk for a while. Sorry. And the other thing that I sort of mentioned in the previous video is this reluctance to accept science and statistics. Why is that? Why does the jester not like science? Why does the jester not like statistics? So, Yozo was kept awake by these statistics that, if every person wastes more than 3 grains of rice, then how many bags are wasted every year, if you economize the same handkerchief, then how much pulp is saved, this sort of crap. But then he comes to the conclusion that these are the lies of science and statistics, because you can't actually you can't actually do that. You can't actually waste huge bags of rice as an individual. You can't come with a team, and collect the grains of rice from everybody, right? So if you yourself waste, if you waste some food, nothing really happens. Nothing really happens. It's just quantification, which is sort of a lie, because even though you can quantify it if you want to, I guess, it's not real. You can't really collect them, And so the conclusion it comes to is the kind of scientific anti-realism or scientific kind of relativism, this kind of devastating relativism where, he doesn't really go into it in detail, but he basically says, look, science is a lie. And the reason why that's important to the theory here is because that's part of the lie of society. It's part of the way that society subjugates you. I suppose there's some, postmodernist philosophers would say interpolate you, whatever the words are, the hegemonic common sense, all that stuff. The ideology, the ruling ideology. That's just another way of doing that. And that's why it's rejected by the jester, because it's just another attempt at subjugating the person into a whole, quantifying his life, which is annoying for one. Annoying for one because a jester doesn't like to be quantified. It's annoying because it's not real, but it's perhaps the most annoying part about it is that it's used as a mechanism of subjugation to make you feel disturbed, make you feel guilty. They love to make you feel guilty. That's sort of what I talked about in the previous video. Is that they make, if you don't have kids, for example, then the reaction is will make you feel guilty. Maybe even your family will. Well, when are you gonna give us some kids? They might not say it, but they look down on you. They think, what's wrong with him? They might not say it, but they look down on you if you don't have a good job, if you don't make a lot of money, if you're too light or too fat, too short, not pretty enough. All these measures that are in a way all qualitative and quantitative measures. This is all basically science. It's all basically an attempt to quantify your existence away into abstractions that don't mean anything. Stupid bullshit. Stupid, shallow bullshit that a jester doesn't care about because it's not authentic. It's, and of course it hurts even more because the jester usually can't do these things because he's not normal. So he feels even more alienated. Look at you, the GDP is going up. Why aren't you happy? You're supposed to be happy. You're supposed to be thankful for all that society has furnished to you. And you just don't appreciate it. You don't believe in us, in our little project. Why aren't you tickled pink? And the humans, the normal ones, will never understand why. They're too stupid to understand why, because they're properly assimilated to the function. The eye watches them, but they are given the illusion. They're given the illusion that it's a good thing, because the endless flow of things, their endless contingency, is falsely reified into determinacy, right? So, they're sort of protected from the elements. They're protected from the blows of nature, So, Hobbes claimed that society is a good thing because we need it to defend us against nature. Nature red in tooth and claw and all that stuff. And Rousseau said the opposite. So I think they're usually compared against each other. So Rousseau says, no, we're actually natural children of nature, and it's society that destroys us. It's society that undignifies us and turns us into beasts, right? And in reality, they're both correct and both wrong. Nature sucks and society sucks for us, for the jesters, right? So, and so Yozo's philosophy and mine can be summarized in this passage he has, in these verses he has, in which he says, man's life is like a flowing river. What is that to fret over? And also, this phrase he repeats several times, I think, everything passes. Everything passes. That's kind of like this, it's reminiscent of Heraclitus, who said, you don't step into the same river twice. So it's a very relativistic contingent. It's a relativistic kind of philosophy. And the reason why it's a relativistic philosophy, the reason why it's that kind of pessimistic relativistic philosophy, is because that's where freedom lies for people like us, the constantly moving river. That's why I think that's why you could say that's why Dazai threw himself into the river with his lover when they committed double suicide, is because the river was the opposite of this ocean. The river was the elimination of the lie of society, right? So when he made the rounds of the bars, when he attempted double suicide with a lover, in the story, when he took they took the flower, took the virginity of a girl, this was the violent life of the river, the opposite of the ocean. The ocean entraps you, i.e. society, but the river always flows, always, everything always passes, and that's I think the only kind of that's the only kind of loosening of the fetters, of the chains, the only kind of liberation that you can accomplish, and society is the opposite of that. So I think that's why he keeps repeating that, and that's why he liked the river, right? You seem to like, Dazai himself. So, is there anything else? Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember. I've written down some of this stuff, by the way, but I don't remember. I think that's about it, right? And he wasn't a bad guy. That's the last thing I would say. So he wasn't a bad guy, Dazai or Yozo, because we don't really know how much of it is accurate, but a lot of it seems to be accurate, and you can't really fake this stuff. This is very authentic stuff. So he wasn't a bad guy. He wasn't a demon. It's not that he was no longer human because he was now a monster or a beast. He wasn't outside of humanity or below humanity, but somebody who sought humanity from above, an angel.